Dorie, welcome to Timelines. We'd say episode 145, but we made this into a special because Blab is not cooperating on the East Coast, and that's one of the tools we use now. So welcome to Timelines.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here.
You get two shows. You're going to get the test show, and we might even use you in our upcoming course, which is coming up here shortly. And it's you can go over to, my mind is like gone. Usually I can cut this, and I'd pause and blab. But I can't do that now. We're live, and this is a new platform. It throws you off. So it's 2halfsuccess.com is where the temporary site is, but the course is going to be netcasting101.com. Now, I know you're in communications. You've done a lot of writing. You're an adjunct professor at Duke, and you have a Cambridge phone number, which is unique. So we're going to sort of really quickly tell you how you got to where you are and where you're from originally. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a small town in North Carolina. And made it a point to leave as soon as I could.
Where in North Carolina?
I grew up in Pinehurst, which is
I know Pinehurst well.
Yeah, the golf capital of the world.
I was in 10th Special Forces. I spent a lot of time in Pinehurst.
Oh, nice. Yep.
I was young. Yeah, Colonel Rowe. Last time I was in Pinehurst, I went to a party for Colonel Rowe. I don't know if you know who he was, but he was killed in the Philippines.
Oh my goodness.
Really well known, respected individual. So. But Pinehurst, I know I've gone to parties since then. I went back and saw my DEA friends out there who were lovely area, though. You left Pinehurst? Pinehurst is nice.
It's nice if you like golf.
Yeah. Yes, it's like, I live in Reno. It's like an older folks golf community. And there's a lot of skiing, too. We do a lot of other things, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I live now in New York.
And you went to school, and you ended up in Cambridge, and now you're in New York. And you've written a couple books. What are those books?
So my first book was called Reinventing You. It came out in 2013 from Harvard Business Review Press, and it's basically a book about how to take control of your personal brand, especially if you are making a job or a career transition. And my most recent book, which came out about 6 months ago, is called Stand Out: How to Find Your Breakthrough Idea and Build a Following Around It. And that is essentially about how to become a recognized expert in your field.
Now, you can become a recognized expert in two different categories. One is like an entrepreneur. One is like, I was in human trained team systems in the military. And we have PhDs, and those guys all, and girls, women, I should say, they all want to become experts and get published, and they're being paid big dollars by the government. So your book sounds like they'd help on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the goal, to help as many people as possible who have good ideas, make sure those good ideas get noticed and recognized and actually have an impact in the world.
Very good. So what are some of the tricks behind getting recognized?
Well, fundamentally, there's two parts to it. It's about developing the kind of ideas that are worthy of getting noticed. And then second, it's about being willing to build the following around it. And so I provide suggestions for both of those things. But when it comes to building the following, if you already have an idea you'd like to share, what I discovered and what I lay out in Standout is that fundamentally it's a three-part formula. First, you need to build your network, which is getting around you a small, trusted group of people, a group of colleagues that can provide honest feedback to you. You could call it a kitchen cabinet, a mastermind group, but people whose judgment you trust to tell you if it's a good idea or not, and help you in the early stages. Second, you want to build an audience, which is where you start communicating more broadly to people who may not have heard your ideas before. So it could be through doing things like appearing on podcasts or writing blog posts, giving speeches, whatever, but it's about introducing your ideas to the masses. And then finally, the third step is building your community, which is where once you've begun to get traction with an audience, it's enabling them to be able to become evangelists and talk to each other, share ideas with each other, so that you are no longer the only person who's talking about your idea.
Oh, very good. Very good. I love those ideas, and I totally understand. I think I've done it the hard way from time to time, too. Especially, I've done some major shifts in my life. I was West Point, 9 years active, got out and had a design build construction company and stayed in the reserves, and then was activated for the war, went back and finished up. So I've had some big breaks, but always run my own business. But coming back out, I've completely changed now to this online communications business. And it's some of the things I did in the military, anthropology, things like that. But it is really a challenge to wind through and find out what works and what doesn't work.
It certainly can be, absolutely. That's why I think it's so important, and this is something that I talk about a lot in my first book, Reinventing You, to make sure that you are communicating your brand and not just assuming that other people get it if you're making a transition, because most of the time other people's perception of you is going to be lagging the reality. In fact, for most folks, it may be 2 or 3 or even 5 years out of date because they haven't been paying very close attention to you. So it's really essential to make sure that you are communicating actively and regularly with other people and not just leaving that to chance.
What do you recommend for a brand? Is it an individual brand or is it a company brand? What do you mean exactly?
Well, typically, the audience for the books that I'm writing are individuals who are thinking about their own personal brand. What is their reputation in the marketplace? Although the concepts I think are very similar, and in fact, the background that I come out of is having my own consulting business, where I've done consulting for a lot of major companies and organizations, like everything from the National Park Service to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to Google.
Well, nice. Now, you're as an adjunct professor, which is kind of fun. You're living in Manhattan, which is really neat. And you're from North Carolina, and a nice place, I think. I think if I had a choice, I'd be in, Southern Pines. I like Manhattan, too. Manhattan's a great place to visit, but expensive.
Yes, it is.
As an adjunct professor, it sounds you have some freedom to do other things.
I do. I teach at Duke probably about 3 or 4 times a year, and so there's a few special things that I do. The past 3 years, I've taught a class called Marketing Strategy. It's just a very intensive week-long class for executive MBA students, and I also teach a program a couple times a year for the executive education program called Communication for Leaders, which talks about everything from oral presentation skills to use of social media and things like that.
Well, what do you think about the social media? It has changed so much in the last 8 months. It's making my head spin.
It's true. It's true. We have things like blab.im. So Periscope. A lot to keep up with that.
We have a show every Sunday morning at 9:30 Pacific. It's 30 minutes after Meet the Press on the Pacific. It's called meetthevoter.com, and it has really grown. It's grown 400% one week, 1,000% last week. We had 1,000 people at one time watching us live. We had a well-known Periscoper come up on Blab from a freelance reporter from France, and give us a first-hand accounting. It is an amazing tool. Amazing. I think we're the first out on this political show called Meet the Voter. Like Meet the Press, meetthevoter.com. My problem is I've got several shows and they all have different brands.
Yes, it is tricky for sure when you're a little bit of a Renaissance person to think about how to do that. So, I mean, one possibility is, if in some cases this is possible, in some cases it isn't, but one of the best solutions, if it's possible, is to try to create a through line between those things. And so one example that I talk about in my first book, Reinventing You, is Tim Ferriss, who many business authors, many business readers will be familiar with him, most famous for the 4-Hour Work Week, but then he writes the 4-Hour Body, then he writes the 4-Hour Chef. And you'd think on the surface that writing a business book, following it up with a fitness book, and then following it up with a cookbook are incredibly different things that would appeal to incredibly different audiences. But he was able to create a narrative through line that showed, even though he's doing these things that on the surface look very different, he says, no, there's a commonality. The same people are going to be interested in this. This is not about business or about fitness or about health. It is about so-called lifestyle design. And so that is the through line there. So if you can try to find something like that unites the strands, that's a very powerful way of doing the marketing.
I test shows too. We do testing. I started by doing podcasting, and podcasting's nice. It used to get 8-to-1 compared to YouTube. And we test shows now. I started a show called podcastershome.com, and I have, if you look at my address, it actually is Podcasters Home is the Twitter account. And I've got like 8 or 9 Twitter accounts. For every show has a Twitter account. And I use this most of the time. We did 12 of them. We talked to the very top podcasters, some of the top developer podcasters in the world. And we came to the conclusion that it wasn't a good show. After talking to the very best, it was good for podcasters, but it wasn't a show that was going to grow.
Interesting. Yep.
But I love that name. And so now we got other homes, home here, home there. And I've got the biggest one is webcasting. I've got Netcast.com. And the newest one is basically Netcaster's home. I have to stop and think. I've got 50 sites, 50 websites, domains,
That
17.
is impressive.
It's hard to keep them all straight, but right, they don't brand well in the visual brand. Hey, we're going to have you back on since we're testing this today, and this is going to be up tonight.
Yes.
You're going to be in between two episodes from a real estate, one of the top producers and trainers in real estate. He was up on 139, and he has a special coming on 140. So you're going to be between them.
Instant gratification. I love it.
On a special. I'm trying to do that more and more. I'm less on the scheduling. It is a special. Less on scheduling, and the idea is to get the shows up as fast as we can. We've always had them up on YouTube fast. Being netcasting, see, podcasting, there's actually, I'll send you the reference. It actually is developed in North Carolina in an institute down there. And they talk about the evolution of netcasting, be webcasting and podcasting. It was written in 2007. And you hear all these different names. So I think even in this field, people are confused with the different names.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So what would you call Blab, which we're not on?
Yeah. I guess, it would be, I would typically think of it as more the Periscope variety of live streaming video chats, that sort of thing.
It's powerful. It's very powerful, and I want you to go and practice on Blab. Look at Blab.me, watch our shows, and when you come up for the regular show, we'll reschedule. You can reschedule like till late at night on Thursday. I do most of my recording on Thursday and Sunday morning. Hey, what I'm going to do, we're running a little tight on time because I know you got to get out of here, and I do, but I still want to read your life and success principles.
Yes, excellent.
I'm not sure how much we're going to talk about them. I'll talk about a couple of them, and we'll have you come back to finish them because that's the real show, and you'll be 140 something on the real show. So you came up with the following, and I really like this format. Normally we'd take a break right now, and we do a commercial for Share the Oils of Northern Nevada, and we do netcasting101.com for people to go sign up, the pre-show. And we do one for wp-tonic.com, and that's support. That's one of the developers who comes to us to pays us to help them produce and create podcasts. So we also have a couple others. We're finding another thing that's happening right now is the local niche podcasts are doing well. If you can go out and interview someone in your community and you have like your real estate broker or insurance company, you get known and you just get to know a lot of folks and people start watching locally.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's funny. The people on the East Coast are going to like this show. I get complaints. I have a lot of folks on the East Coast who watch, and they say we do too many podcasts from around Reno, Nevada. So I've always thought about separating those two. So here are your 7 points, and we're only going to talk about a couple of them, though. I'm going to read them. Limit your goals. 2 is sleep first. 3 is share your ideas. 4 is live below your means. I typed it wrong. Live below your means. See, I can edit that out in the iTunes. Invest in what counts. Number 6 is clean desk. And number 7 is multitask. I'm going to ask you to talk about just 2 of those. Limit your goals and multitask.
All right, fantastic. So with limit your goals, obviously it doesn't necessarily mean that your goals have to be small goals. In fact, they probably should be big goals, but you can't be doing tons of them at a time. And so for me personally, one of the strategies that I use is that every 6 months I try to have a rolling set of 3 goals that I'm focused on. So at the beginning of this year, I really only had 3 goals. Any activity that I did was in service of one of these goals. That was how I viewed whether or not it was worth doing. So one was doubling the size of my email list during the course of the year. The other was launching my book successfully, stand out. The third was getting a girlfriend. So I figured, those are the only 3 things that I can really focus on in a substantial way. So now I'm updating that. One of my goals is now for the 6 months moving forward is creating my own online course, for instance. So that'll be a big area of focus. But going deep on that, I think, is critical. And now for multitasking, this is something it's controversial because many people say, well, you shouldn't multitask at all. And I think largely that's true. If you're constantly switching back and forth between your email and writing a report and your email and being on Facebook and whatever, your distraction is going to be shot. It's not going to be any good. You need to learn to control yourself in that way. However, there are times when it's valuable and good to multitask. And so I try to take those moments and make good use of them. So when I'm doing something that legitimately requires no brain power, you're folding laundry, you're washing dishes, you're walking home, you're doing something like that, those are the times that I try to either listen to podcasts so that I can be educated while I'm doing things, or make phone calls to people that I want to be talking to, my mom or people that I ought to be checking in with, because it's good to leverage those moments to be connected.
That's like my son. He calls me while he's driving back, and he lives in New Orleans on the truck going over the bridge. That's the only time I get to talk to him.
That's right. Well, he's a smart man, making good use of the time, right?
So did you accomplish all your goals?
I accomplished a lot of my goals.
Those last three?
Yeah. Well, I've been up and down with the girlfriend part, but I'm continuing to be assiduous. I did double my email list. I did not make my book a New York Times bestseller. That's a tough goal to reach, but the sales have been very good. So I feel like it has a lot of longevity in standout. So I'm proud of how we've been doing.
Now, you said publish your book, I thought was a goal, not make the bestseller list.
Well, to launch it successfully. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of ways that one can define it.
Well, Dorie, I want to thank you for being on very, very much. And thank you for doing this test. You're actually going to be a test. Now, and on disclosure that when you sign up, it actually says we own this 50-50 and can we use it for whatever we need to use it for in commercial, publishing, any references. So we both own this equally.
All right. Fantastic.
And stay on. Do not hang up. And thank you. By the way, remember to tell folks, how can they get a hold of you? What's the easiest way?
Thank you, Bill. Yes, I would send folks to my website. It's dorieclark.com. And when they're there, they can actually check out a free giveaway. It's a free 42-page standout self-assessment workbook that actually walks people step by step through how they can develop their own breakthrough ideas and build a following around them. And they can get it all for free right on my homepage at dorieclark.com. It's DORIECLARK.
Well, thank you, Dorie. And I really appreciate being a good sport. And we're going to get this blab down.
Hey, awesome. Thank you.